Howdy and welcome back. So let's go ahead and begin by discussing what serialization is, as well as what deserialization means. So what is serialization, deserialization? Well, when we think about it, every non-trivial application that we're going to develop, or in fact, those that we use, are going to need to store and manipulate persistent data. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you open up Microsoft Word and you begin crafting up or composing some sort of document. In all likelihood, you're going to want to go ahead and save that document to the hard disk so that you could come back and work on it later. Or if your system perhaps loses power or something happens in the process of composing that document, you have a means of retrieving some sort of version of it. Serialization is going to be essentially taking the in-memory representation of something within an application, in the Word example, the document you're working on, and converting it into a form that can be stored in persistent storage, for instance, on your hard disk. After performing this task, you might exit out of Microsoft Word and begin going and working on something else, perhaps. At some point, you'll probably want to revisit this document and you'll need to open it up from your persistent storage tier and go ahead and actually get it within the memory so that you can interact with it in the application. The deserialization process is going to be going from that persistent storage, such as the hard disk, back into an in-memory representation of whatever it is that was stored in a form that the actual application can interact with. So how do we convert between the data structures and objects, say, manipulated within our applications and persistent data, say, stored out there on our hard drive? Well, serialization or marshaling of an object is going to be the conversion of an in-memory object to our storage representation. And we'll see here that there's many different ways that we can actually represent the objects that we have in memory in the file system. But plain text files will be one, binary files another, and then we'll eventually get into databases. Deserialization or unmarshalling is going to be the conversion back from that storage representation to an in-memory object that we're able to interact with within our application. So we're going to continue on with a brief discussion as to what is structured storage. So structured storage is going to be simply a system that's going to allow us to specify the desired structure of stored objects. So what is an example of a structure storage? Maybe an Excel spreadsheet, a plain text file containing the text of an email, or C, a text file consisting of names with exactly one per line. Well, in the case of structured storage, only A and C are going to be structured, since an app reading those files can make assumptions about how to interpret the content based on the structure alone. For instance, if you think about an Excel spreadsheet, there's different fields that house different values. And that if we wanted to look at the value for, say, the third field, we would know that we'd simply have to move from one field to the next until we arrive at the third field. We know where it is because there's structure to that data. Likewise, for a text file consisting of names, if we wanted to traverse from, say, one name to the next, and there's exactly one name per line, well, it would be very easy to jump to the next name, by jumping to the next line. And again, this enforces some sort of structure on our data that allows us to essentially make assumptions about how we can interpret the actual file that we're interested in here, or data in that case. A plain text file containing the text of an email message is not a structured storage. Why? Well, just think about it. It's unstructured. It's just a bunch of characters, and there's no fields to delimit, say, where maybe the to field of who that email was to, from the from field, from the actual body of that message to its headers. Plain text representation of that email is going to be unstructured in this sense. So with that in mind, after briefly kind of introducing this concept of serialization and deserialization, let's go ahead and move our discussion to how we can structure data in plain text files for the serialization and deserialization processes.